Whakarongo ki te tangi a te korimako. Kōrero flowing out the hooker force. Kaupapa relevant, kaupapa out of bounds, kaupapa exigent, kaupapa paramount. Nā kona whakapiri mai ki te kaupapa tino whakahira hira. Whakarongo pi kari kari mai, hare hare mai. O Taringa hare hare mai. We gotta gather up close everybody. Gather up close everybody. Kani move that body. Kani move that body.
E te iwi nau mai hoki mai koutou tātou anei ki te punua pāho o Taringa, coming to you from Te Ipurau under the auspices of Te Whānau o Te Roa. Tēnā koutou nei māua ko the Snowman, te puaheiri. E mihi atu ana, and e mihi ana kia koe hoa, te manuhiri o tēnei punua pāho, Rangi Matamua e hoa tēnā koe nau mai hoki mai. It's nearly been a year.
E hoa, nā mihi kia koutou, me te hura whakarongo mai nei.
Tēnā koe e hoa. And I think it's timely, this week, while we're pre-recording e te iwi, we're actually leading up to Te Hui Ahurei a Tūhoe. This weekend, Easter weekend, you know, I thought, koe tētahi iwi hei kōrerotanga mā tātou I tēnei punua pāho, I tēnei terenga o Taringa, because we've gone back around to iwi o te wiki, and I thought, it's Te Hui Ahurei a Tūhoe, we have to speak about Tūhoe.
Aye, good timing.
Even though Snow wants to talk about Ngāpui all the time.
All the time.
No.
It's only half an episode.
Well, the rest is mā tātou kōrero.
Oh, so no māua o tira, no mātou te waimari e hoa. E rangi whakai mai koe kia whakawāte anō I a koe ki te kōrero mai. No reira tēnā koe. Before we launch into te kōrero mo te iwi o te wiki, Ngāi Tūhoe, I asked Rangi for a kiwaha from Tūhoe, and you know, he did suggest wiare, which is very, very Tūhoe. No, it's a tiny one. And the kiwaha that he suggested we use through this episode is...
Auareake.
Auareake. Well, I must admit this kiwaha has made it into my lingua franca, everyday language that I use. And how tō whakamāramatanga mo te auareake e hoa?
Usually, you know, I kind of use it when I'm saying, you know, it couldn't be done or nothing happened or, you know, you couldn't achieve your goal. Like, oh, we went there to shoot a deer, auareake.
Yeah. You thought you'd go to the gym to get muscles, get muscly and auareake.
Auareake. I was already muscly.
So that's a koina tātātai kiwaha e hoa ma, auareake. Well, we'll attempt to use that kiwaha as many times as we can through the episode so you can have some examples of how you can use it. So I think what's good about this kiwaha is it's a standalone kiwaha. But as you start learning more te reo Māori, you want to build the kiwaha into your language so you're using it in te reo Māori. But, you know, we encourage you to use the kiwaha. And I know a lot of people, their interest to learn te reo Māori has stemmed from hearing kiwaha, and kiwaha is a good sort of way to start. So if you've just joined us, if this is your first time you've listened to Taringa, you can go back and listen to our other episodes. Hoi anō, Ngāi Tūhoe, tō iwi, Tūhoe, te iwi o te wiki, and... You know, it might be a bit of a cart before the horse, te kātai mua te hoiho, but because we are coming up to te hui ahurei a Tūhoe, maybe we start there, and that might be sort of a platform for you to extend on the kōrero more Tūhoetanga and Tūhoe pōtiki.
Okay, bro. Oh, that's a good place to start, I guess. So this weekend we have Te Hui Ahurei a Tūhoe, which is our Tūhoe festival. I think it might be one of the longest, if not the longest going festivals, tribal festivals. Started back in Rotorua, actually, way back in the early 70s, an initiative put together by John Rangiho. The first gatherings were more, I think they were more sporting catch-ups, and yeah, there was a performing arts element to it, but over the years, since it's returned back home, back to Ruatoki mainly, it's grown out to be a very competitive kapahaka, sporting, debating, bands, all kind of festivals where Tūhoe in the regions go back and battle it out with Tūhoe living at home. You know, they go as either communities, like Ruatahuna and different groups from Ruatoki and Waikaremoana, those are your traditional places. And then we have Tūhoe from Pōneke, Tūhoe ki Pōneke. Here in the Waikato, we have Te Honoa Te Kiore, Tūhoe ki Waikato. And so we're going over. there can be upwards sometimes of 20-something teams. So it's just a celebration of our tūhoetanga, and where you go back and see your relations and then try and beat them up on the rugby field and perform against them. And, I think one of the cool things is every year they do a different waiata koroua or mōteatea that all of the groups learn, and they perform on stage. So everyone knows those waiata koroua. We all go through a pōhiri process, a wero and a haka pōhiri on stage, and do te pūru or our traditional haka, so we all know them. So it's just another way of instilling our own practices within the people.
Kia ora.
So, this year, for the first time since the early 70s, it's come out of Tūhoe, and we're going to Rotorua. Mind you, half of Rotorua Tūhoe anyway, I think, these days. Paraone.
Tika.
But we're going there. We're grateful to have Te Arawa support us and Ngāti Whakaue, because it's at the stadium, and they're letting us host our festival there. So, here we come.
Tēnā koe. One kupu tūhoe, I guess I've learnt through tūhoe, and particularly around Te Ahure, is this kupu I hear tūhoe use a lot. Mate aone.
Ai.
Mate aone. Could you, provide a whakamārama about that kupu? Because I think it's an interesting, it resonates with me, even though it's a tūhoe.
I like using it myself.
Yeah, well, a lot of people I've heard say that they have that term as well. But I just like to say, au ware ake. That's one for me, Paraone.
Oh, that's a good one. That's
Yeah.
too.
The term itself, from a tūhoe perspective, we use that term when we talk about the connection that we have to each other and the bond that we have to our whenua. We're actually bound together through our whenua as a people. And mate kind of not only talks about the death of when you die, you go back to your whenua, but it's also about that longing and that desire to interact and to be with your relations and your people. Actually, the term itself comes from Hene Nui Te Pō.
Oh, kia ora.
Maui was trying to dispatch of her. Before he went to her to kill her, unsuccessfully, he wanted to kill her, au ware ake.
Au ware ake, yeah.
He asked her, look e koe, te taonga kei a koe. This treasure you have of life and the ability to hold life. Give it to me so I can live forever. And she said, Carl. And he said, well, what if I live and die like the year? The year sets, we die. The year comes again, we come again. She says, Carl. He said, what about if I live and die like the moon? The moon sets, I set, it rises, I rise. She said, Carl Maui. He said, what if I die like the sun? People are like the sun. We set like the sun sets, so we die, we rise again in the morning. She says, oh, what else? Then she said to Maui, I will take you. Death will take you when you're old, when you're young, in the rain and the sun, whenever. Kia aroha koutou kia koutou, kia manaki koutou ia koutou, kia mate aone koutou ia koutou. So she said, so you learn to love one another, you learn to respect one another, but I bind you together with a bond that is shared because you come from the same place. So that's the reason why when one of us is ill or one of us passes away, we have this deep-set sorrow and tears and hupe, because we're not like other species that can just walk away from that. We are bound to each other through the words of Hene Nui Te Pō to Maui, and that's how tūhoe understand. It's not unique, because all people, all Māori have that connection to their whenua and to each other. But tūhoe just coined a phrase, and that's what we understand comes out in our ahure, mate aone.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
You used another, and I think it's something that other iwi clicked on to, and it was a phrase I think that came about through Te Ahure, correct me if I'm wrong, is tūhoetanga. I hear, we talk about raukawatanga, but some of my kaumātua have said to me, why are you putting a tanga on the end of our tupuna? And I've had to explain to them, So tūhoetanga, what does it mean to be tūhoe? What to you? Big question, this one.
For me, it doesn't mean dropping my G's, I can tell you that. Oh, ware ake. It's coming from a particular place, it's having a uniqueness to me that I feel a bond to a particular area and to a particular people. Now, that's not dissimilar to any other group of people, but one of the unique aspects about tūhoe that I've always been proud of is the fact that we are the descendants from the Mātātua canoe, but that's not our only origin. It would be wrong to think that we actually understand also that the people from the Mata Tuakunu came into Te Urewera and married into an original people that were already here. We are the descendants of Te Maunga and Hine Pukohurangi, the mountain and the mist. And those two copulated and gave birth to Pōtiki Tuatahi. And Pōtiki is our ancestor, and Ngā Pōtiki was the iwi. And we descend from that lineage. And I always, when I am at home in Ruatahuna, and I see the mist and I look across the mountains and realise that I'm actually born out of that environment. I didn't come there. You know, my whakapapa and the whenua and pito, not just of my tipuna, but of my gods, is actually in the land. And I've always thought that is my tūhoitanga. That is something that, regardless of where I go or who I interact with or how much I do and how many bad things I do, I guess sometimes, and the good things sometimes, that's something that will never sever. That's my mate aone. And when it's my time, I'll go back to that and get buried in the ground there and be part of that process. So, yeah, for me, I think that's this awesome, unbroken connection to my environment and to who I am.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kōrero. Tino hohonu e rā.
Tēnā ohonu, yeah.
I nearly got goosebumps. Is it right to say, or because, you know, some of our listeners may or may not be familiar with the reference to Tūhoe as Tūhoe Pōtiki, would it be correct to say, because Tūhoe being the youngest of 3 brothers, because he had a younger sister ne, but Pōtiki also is in remembrance or recognition of his links to Ngā Pōtiki, his descent from Te Maunga and Hine Pukohurangi?
No, as his name, Tūhoe Pōtiki, was given to him because he was the youngest.
Oh, right.
That's how that comes out. But, of course, he was quite an ambitious person, Tūhoe Pōtiki. He was very ambitious. And so he had an older brother. There's Uemua, Tāne Moiahi. That's the second. Tūhoe Pōtiki was third. And then Uenukurauri, their sister who married Te Rangi Whataekehau from Te Arawa, and they had Rangi Te Aorere. That's our first connection into Te Arawa, and it's one of the reasons that we're going to Te Arawa for our ahure is because he, Te Rangi Te Aorere, who was half Tūhoe, uttered the phrase, e kotahi nā Tūhoe kata te pō.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Those are his words. So he was the youngest, but Tūhoe Pōtiki was ambitious, and he actually assumed the mantle of his older brother. And he did this by killing him.
Oh, goodness.
Cutting out his heart, roasting it in a fire, and eating it.
Wow.
So, you know, yeah. So, yes, he was the youngest, but he wanted to rise to a situation of dominance. And, yeah, he did it.
There you go, you know, if you got a problem with your brother.
Yeah.
Pull his heart out.
Is he going to get the house? Pull his heart out?
That kōrero, te kotai rānei, nā Tūhoe, o erua.
Erua. Some say, he te tā Tūhoe, he kotahi nā Tūhoe.
Yeah.
I understand it as te kotahi, he kotahi nā Tūhoe e kata te pō.
Right.
You know, he was challenged Rangi Te Aorere by Te Arawa. So he said, they had a group of people on Makoia, Te Tini o Kawearero. They couldn't defeat them. And Rangi Te Aorere said, I'll do it. And they teased him, said, kotahi rānei koe tō kotahi. Really? You're going to do this on your own, are you? And he says, e hoa, he kotahi nā Tūhoe kata te pō. I may be on my own, but the multitudes of the night will laugh because of my deeds.
True.
And he did, and that's what that means, you know. Though I may be a single person, Hades will shake with fear from the deeds I will perform in this lifetime.
Wow.
Wera te wairo o tērā kōrero.
That's better than something you'd hear on 300, eh?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He wasn't a descendant of Tūhoe, though, so does that show that, because Tūhoe would have been his uncle, so his mother's brother, Uenukurauri was his mother, Tūhoe his uncle, did Tūhoe play a part in his upbringing, the upbringing of Te Rangita of Rangi Te Aorere? Why he said that?
Yes, Tūhoe trained him. He was a pōrero. That's how he gets his name. You know, his father said when his mother was hapu, before he left and went back to Rotorua, to Te Arawa, ran away from child support, I suppose. He said, if it's born a girl, name her after the rangitaiki. But if it's born a male, name him after the clouds that float in the sky, Rangi Te Aorere. That's how he gets his name. But his father taught him, his uncle, Tūhoe, taught him how to be a warrior, gave him his skills, and that was handed on to Rangi Tūhoe, and he ended up being resident in Rotorua. But that is Tūhoe's connection, one of our connections into Te Arawa.
Tēnā koe, and of course now there is a hapu, or iwi, of Te Arawa there called Ngāti Te Rangi Tūhoe. Yeah. Ai pai katoa nei kōrero e hoa.
Yeah, no, hopefully it gives us a claim to the airport. Auware ake pia. Auware ake.
And tiki tere, engari, auware ake. I think I've done 3, Rangi's done 6, Nai's done none.
I'm on none tomorrow.
He might do a down trail if
They
he
might,
doesn't get any auware akes.
they might ask me if I got any, but auware ake.
Oh, snow, eh? Nā puhi, auware ake.
Auware ake.
E hoi, you know, I paku kōrero koe mo te kāinga, you know, and I know you still, I kōrero koe mō ruātoki, but I know a koe no ruatāhuna. Perhaps give us some insight into the borders or the whereabouts of te iwi o Tūhoe, Ngāi Tūhoe. I mean, we're here te urewera,
Yeah.
you know. It's like, well, where's that?
Well, so western borders stretch as far as Te Awamatu, and up into Te Araroa. The heart of Tūhoe is Ruatahuna. That's where my house is, and that's where I'm from. Ruatahuna is called the Kōhanga. That's one of its names. Now, we also know Ruatahuna as Te Manawa o Te Ika. The Tūhoe believe that our mountains, the Huiaro ranges and the mountains are called the heart of the fish.
Kia ora.
And we have a mountain in Ruatahuna called Manawaru. And it's Manawaru because it's Te Manawa o Te Ika. I know other people will say it's Lake Taupo, Enari Auware ake. Our eastern boundary line stretches to Waikaremoana. Moana. And actually, there's a tatau paunami between us and Kahununu on the eastern side of Waikaremoana Moana on the other side. So Waikaremoana Moana is within the Tūhoe boundary. It comes around into the Tiniroto area. That's where our borders are coming into the east coast. It includes Maunga Pōhatu down into Te Waimana. We say that we go all the way to the stretch out and just touch the coast. And these are disputed boundaries. Like there are borderlands, as you both be aware. We share hapu at Kutarere, Te Upokorehe. They say that they're half Whakatohea, half Tūhoe. Some of them say they're Tūhoe, some of them say they're Whakatohea, but we stretch into that area. Ruatoki is within our boundary, so as we say Tāne Atua. We run down to Waiohau, and we border into Murupara, and come around the back. Our southern border comes into the top of Tūwharetoa along towards the Taupo, Napier Taupo Highway. So
Wow.
fairly much, Tūhoe's boundary, because number one, it's not tar sealed and lots of bush and blackberry.
Yeah.
So when you see those markers, that's pretty much our whenua. Whakatāne and Rangi Taiki are our two rivers. Waikaremoana Moana is our lake, and we have mountains. We are a people who are connected to Tāne Mahuta. So Tāne is our atua. We don't really know Tangaroa, but Tāne and the mountains, and we're a bush people in the middle of the North Island, fairly much between Wairoa, Gisborne and Rotorua, Murupara, in that region.
Big map.
Sika.
But we still might claim Te Awamutu, bro.
Well, hey, you could, I mean, maybe not, well, you definitely got a claim to, I wouldn't want to use the kupu fame, but there's a place here for Tūhoe, as you know, with your tūpuna, or
Tika.
Te Heketu would love me to say your tīpuna. That came here from Ruatahuna, from Ōpūtau to Ōrākau. And then there's the connection to Kawhia Moana, the kōrero, I roto i a mātou, that Tūhoe came over here to Kawhia and lived out his last days here and is buried here in Kawhia. So there's those connections as well.
Yes, no, we have a very strong connection to Tainui, a very strong connection to Raukawa, particularly Ruatahuna. That is a place from where the tīpuna, Paraone, came from Tūhoe via Pohaturoa and into Ngāti Raukawa to fight at Ōrākau. And that is something that is still very important and relevant for us of Tūhoe to maintain that bond with Tainui. Yes, our tīpuna is buried over here, died and drowned over here. Like I was saying, we're not too good on the water. We are bush people. Didn't have a life jacket on, but we have these connections into Tainui, and a lot of us are here. We're a lot of tūhoe in these regions, and the calibre of tūhoe that came here, the likes of Rangihau, the likes of Hirini Melbourne, of Wharehui and Milroy, Pau Pēmara is here, Te Haumihi Ata Mason. We have a lot of tūhoe scholars and leaders came into this place, and we have a timo tikaritu, and we have a connection, a strong connection with this place.
And now Dr Rangi Matamua.
Aye.
Yeah, well, maybe that's taking a bit of shine off our reputation, maybe. Off the ones you've just spoken about.
Nei, pai ki au e nei kōrero e hoa. Kōrero ana koe moto rahi mō Ngāi Tūhoe, me ngā kōrero I roto. One kōrero I wanted to ask you about was tūhoe maumau kai, maumau taonga, maumau tangata ki te pō.
Yeah, we waste stuff, right? We litter. Is that what that means? No, that is actually a kōrero from Te Aroa. They gave us that phrase.
Kia ora.
We had a battle at Pukekeikahu. Our big chief warrior was Te Pūrewa. And he had a one-on-one combat with a man there, Tionga, I think his name was. And Te Pūrewa defeated him and beheaded a number of their warriors and took them back to Ruatahuna. And Te Aroa came over to collect the heads. And they got to Ruatahuna and they performed the haka. It was an amazing haka. And Tūhoe said to them, whatitiri ki te rangi, te aroa ki te whenua. Like thunder, lightning flash across the sky. That's how Te Aroa perform. And that is true. They are wonderful exponents of the performing arts, and that's what they're known for. Anyway, our tipuna brought these heads out of the pā that they had them on and put stakes in the ground and put the heads on the stakes, and then proceeded to cover them with fine woven mats and cloaks and taonga. And Te Aroa said, tūhoe maumau kai, maumau taonga, maumau tangata ki te pō. So we fed them. They said, you lavish food upon us, have lavished these treasures upon our heads, upon our ancestors, and I think in the heat of battle had a reputation for dispatching people. And so, yeah, that's where that phrase comes from. It was actually given to us by Te Aroa. And it's what's said about us as opposed to us saying it now. Well, it should be.
What I find interesting about that kōrero was there was two pepeha that came out of that event at Pukekeikahu, and what happened later on in Ruatahuna, Kai Mokopuna, with tūhoe giving a saying that Te Aroa now use, whatitiri ki te rangi, te aroa ki te whenua, and then Te Aroa also, they expressed their whakaro, their thoughts about tūhoe maumau kai, maumau taonga, maumau tangata ki te pō, which I've only heard tūhoe use it in the waiata te rongo te tuna. In one of our past episodes, I said that pepeha are a way of showing your pride and your identity as a iwi, but to be careful sometimes in using them because they can be whakahihi, depending on how you use it, but he whakahihi te Māori, he Māori te whakahihi, e ai ki tō mātou korau. So that's what I find interesting about that saying, tūhoe maumau kai, it came out of the same kōrero.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. In fact, you talked about kai mokopuna, which is a manawa wera that tūhoe do. Actually, that was the haka that Te Aroa did to us. And we sing it now. And you go through the words, it's actually talking about eating the people from Ruatahuna.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, and revenge for what we did at Pukekeikahu. But now we do the haka.
Yeah.
And it's to celebrate that event. And because what iwi do, different iwi have different sayings about other iwi. But in more modern times, the iwi themselves have picked up those sayings and say them about themselves. It's very interesting. It's perhaps a bigger study on about how Māori identity is changing. And it comes with language skills as well. Knowing the origins of kiwaha and pepeha and whakatauki, and knowing how and when to apply them. But yeah, that is maumau kai, same as I was just saying, he potahi nā tūhoe tata te pō. That's one of our favourite sayings, but knowing actually where it originates from, and it was a response to a smart remark.
You know, you talk about language, and I think e kore ahakoa koe te iwi. I think we all sort of look to tūhoe as the keepers. We all are, but because I think of the how te kupu Māori, the remoteness, I guess, of some
Aye.
of the places within
Yep.
Tūhoe.
Isolation.
Isolation.
Yeah, isolation.
Oh, geez, I was trying to find the word, but auare ake.
Paraone.
That we see Ngāi Tūhoe as keepers of the language. Pewhia ana te reo I roto i a koutou I tēnei wā. How is the health of the vitality of te reo Māori I roto i a Ngāi Tūhoe?
The health of the language you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, there is a perception that all Tūhoe speak te reo Māori and auare ake. That is not how that is, in all honesty. We have some communities that maintain a higher percentage of speakers than others. Ruatahunga is fortunate, as is Ruatoki. But again, that's with the older generation.
Right.
From 50 up, it's very solid. And that's probably the main form of communication they use between each other. We had a whānau there a couple of weeks ago. It was 3 days. 3 days, no English. And it wasn't as if the kaupapa was reo Māori. The kaupapa was about kereru. It was just a natural language of discussion.
Wow.
And it was awesome, but that's just normal. However, with the younger generation, no, it is in trouble. And it is not being used within the homes. And isolation has maintained our language for a particular period of time. Let me put it this way. There was an estimate in the 1970s at Whakarongo, which is where Rangiho comes from and Timoti Kāretu comes from, that there was 96% spoken language use and 100% comprehension. I did a research a couple of years ago at Whakarongo. It's 4%.
Wow.
That's the drastic drop of te reo Māori in that community. They are struggling, and that's proficient speakers of te reo Māori.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that colonisation is even reaching into Tūhoe. And we are lucky we have some wonderful exponents of te reo Māori and some good younger ones coming through too, some really good speakers. But as a iwi, we are like everyone else now. We're globalised and we're influenced by all of the other English-speaking things around us. And now our children are growing up speaking Pākehā, and it's something that we need to address and address soon. And they are. There are some projects going on at the moment to sort that out. So yes, the perception is one thing, but the actual situation is not too good. But that's for te reo Māori standard right across the board.
Tēnā koe. Yeah, and I think that's something that ahako koe te iwi. We're all in the same waka in that sense, in our efforts to regenerate, rejuvenate, maintain our te reo use,
Yep.
and mea tātou tikanga.
Aye.
So I think, it might be sobering for some to hear that, Ngāi Tūhoe have got your work cut out for you too in terms of regenerating the language and making it, the language of conversation. Yeah, mahi nui tērā mā tātou katoa.
And to leave it just up to Tūhoe to do so, eh?
Koina hoki.
Yeah. It's everyone's personal responsibility.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think that we have done, one of the things that I'm proud of is, we have been right in the middle of language revitalisation. I think of the efforts of someone like Timoti. He's given over 50 years of his life to revitalising the language of all tribes. Maybe we might be colonising everyone to become Tūhoe, I don't know. But I'm just proud of the fact that, we've had those people work in those spaces, and that's been something that's not bigger than the tribe. It's gone for Māoridom, and it's part of kotahitanga. And does follow that idea, he kotahi nā Tūhoe kata te pō, that individual or that small group of individuals, the pos, the wharehuias, the rangihos, their impact on Māori culture and Māori language, e kata te pō.
Aye.
They're shaking the foundations of the Māori world in many ways. So, it's I always look at that and think, wow, I'm very proud of that input. But in many ways, that perhaps has come at the expense of my own tribe, where we've exported our knowledge.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's time that we start to think about our own tribal well-being.
Yeah, tēnā rau atu koe. I know too, though, I roto i o tātou iwi, ko tātou anō, ka ngautu ara i a tātou.
Oh,
Ka puta, hey, pirangi ki anō mai, engari putarawa ki waho. Kare e hoki mai ki te iwi.
Yeah.
Engari nō rātou i roto i te iwi. Kare aro ake. Auare ake.
Auare ake.
Well, e hoa, e mihi ana ki a koe, māua ki a koe o tira mātou. And I know you're going off to a lecture soon, so we won't keep you. But I thought we'd finish off in a different way. We're going to say a word to you, and then I don't know what this is called, we give a kupu, and then they give us the first thing they think of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got some here and Puaheri will start, Snow will start. So we'll give you a kupu and then you tell us what you think. Hea tō whakaro tuatai, right?
Ai.
Kereru.
Yam. Reka.
Timoti kāretu.
Kawa.
Urewera.
Kāinga.
Kāinga. E nānei tētai kupu nāu i whakaako mai. Karawata.
Ohonu.
Hoi anō e te iwi. Koinei a tātou kōrero mo tēnei rā. E hoa e mihi ana ki a koe mo i whakawātai a koe. Prau rangatira ngā kōrero.
Ai.
Tēnā rau atu koe.
Tēnā kōrua.
Tēnā koe hoa.
Tēnā kōrua.
Hare koe ki tō kaupapa e mihi ana ki a koe.
Ai. He hoa. Ia moi o mai koe, kai te heau te whakahoki a ten ki te kāinga ki te whai pōaka. Nā mihi nui ki a kōru e hoa ma, ka nui te mihi hoki ki te hunga e whakarongo mai nei ki tēnei. Urau e mi tēnei taonga a tāta. Ia ora.
Tēnā koe e hoa. Eiko nā mai.
Pai ngā kōrero a Rangi. Pāna ki a Tūhoe.
Tino pai rau atu.
Yeah. Kātahi ngā kōrero ko tērā.
Yeah.
That's how you put it.
And I enjoyed just the weight of the kōrero.
Yeah.
You know, and, you never stop learning. And I learned a few things too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're lucky. Waimari.
Yep. Especially the view that he took it, because I think there is a view that Tūhoe is well spoken of, but I think I learned a lot of things today, especially the exchanges between Tūhoe and Te Arawa.
Yeah.
I think also that kōrero about them and their exchange when they took up te haka, the manawa wera, is it called the manawa wera? It shows our terms of engagement.
Yes.
In times of war, there was grace, and we had very, very strict terms of engagement.
Yeah.
There was a really good example of that.
1 minute you're cutting heads off, and then there's,
Next minute you're feeding your enemy.
It's sort of like the terms of engagement, and I liken those sort of things to the samurai code, the Bushiro, way of the Bushiro, and those are reminders when you hear those kōrero tuku iho.
Yeah.
And then the kōrero about rangi taurere.
Yeah.
That's pretty staunch.
Yeah. What came from that one? Ka kata te pō.
Yeah. He ko tahi nā tūhoe ka kata te pō. Yeah.
And even though how they're used a lot, but I can't help but think that sometimes they're misused because of a misunderstanding of and actually knowing the story and the kura huna, the hidden treasures of what come of those, That's
good advice actually to anyone that's learning their pepeha.
Yeah.
Is to not just learn the pepeha, what it means, but where does the pepeha come from? Who said the pepeha? What are the how te horopaki? What's the context?
Yep.
What is the bigger picture? The backstory really to a pepeha.
Yeah.
And I've maintained, teaching at kura reo, and that pepeha learning the pepeha of any iwi is a good window into that iwi.
Yes.
And part of their history. It's always, particularly for myself anyway, speaking as a pū kōrero, one who goes around to a lot of hui, sits on the paipai, I like to have a lot of pepeha in my pocket.
Yep.
For, if I go to Ngāpuhi, I know some of the Ngāpuhi pepeha or wherever.
Yep.
Not because I can sound cool, and I might not necessarily even use those pepeha, but they're just the good memory markers.
Yeah.
For things like that.
Because they do, because it's one thing to learn it, then learn its literal meaning or its English meaning, but then to go deeper and deeper, it does give you an insight of a certain place. I think, and also understanding the mindset or the whakaro Māori behind it when learning other iwi pepeha.
Tika.
There's a lot of things to be mindful of.
I didn't say te rangi, I mean, big, nā mihi nui kia Ngāi Tūhoe.
Yeah.
Tūhoe teachers have played a huge part in my life, in my te reo journey and my knowing of te reo Māori, past teachers right from intermediate, going through high school and then to university, and then, even now, many of my mentors are Tūhoe.
Yep.
Some of my whanaunga and friends, said, they're going to put their kids in the kohanga reo, and the kaiako is Tūhoe, or Ngāpuhi, or Te Arawa, and they're really worried about the reo that their child is going to come in. And yet they might learn some Tūhoe things, but for me, the bigger picture is they get that foundation, o te reo Māori, and then later on, it's up to the parents, it's their responsibility if they're speaking in the home or to reconnect that child to where they're from so they can have the language of te rangi o te reo or he ake nei, wherever they're from.
I mean, that's the prime example is that my nieces and nephews are at school here in Te Awamotu, so maniapoto and te reo tainui, that's what they learn.
Yeah.
So ka hoki mai rātou ki te kāinga, ka whikoi mai ki te kāinga.
Yeah.
But kia hone he pai, that's all right, because it's a foundation. It's about a foundation. I was like that once too. I remember helping my cousins at a kura reo, wānanga reo at Otaki, and I was speaking and they go, oh, you fellas from Tūhoe? And I was like, oh no, Ngāpuhi. But it was, But I was exemplifying what was taught to me by my teacher who was from Ruatahuna.
Nei koena nā kōrero e te iwi, mai nā kōrero a Rangi Matamua. And because we're speaking about te reo Māori, it's a good lead into our next into the waiato o te wiki, Te Aumangia, composed by Dr Timoti Kāretu, director of Te Panekiretanga o Te Reo, language, visionary, pioneer, all sorts of kaupapa to do with Te Reo Māori. Composed the song, the words to the song, but the rangi was by an uncle, I think he's an uncle of Rangi actually, the late Te Mākarini Tēmara.
Oh, kia ora.
The tune, and this was the winning action song of Tū Te Maunga Roa back in Hawera 1994.
Wow. GTK?
Yeah, but it sort of does the rounds in the kura reo circuit as one of the kura reo mainstays because it's a beautiful way out that speaks about the different birds in the forest and how we need to look after the language and we need to speak the language in case the forest goes quiet. So,
Kia ora.
Koenei tā tātai waiata, te waiata o te wiki, te aumangia, whakarongo mai.
tiu anō ai, e korihi anō ai, ngā manu.
Koina tata te waiata, even though Snow and I thought we might do a rendition of Te Kotahi a Tūhoe, ka kata te pō. But no, we had Te Umangia. So I hope you enjoyed that waiata e te iwi. I'm not sure if you'll be able to Google the kupu of that one, so we might stick that one up on our Facebook page.
Yeah, because
the kupu.
As a learner myself, any kupu or any written pieces that come from Te Muti Kāreti, I love going through them, and because you learn so many different kupu.
And you just love bamboozling yourself.
Bamboozling, yeah. Being like, ah.
But Te Umangia, the language in there actually is exceptional. Not so much just the words, but how he's, it's poetry.
Yeah. You can learn a whole lot of flash words, but it's how you arrange them, when to use them, yeah. What does Te Umangia mean?
Te Umangia means could be a staunch advocate of something, to be fierce, to be...
Headstrong for your towards your kaupapa.
Yeah.
Te Umangia.
Yeah. So, ko tātou pia Te Umangia, ko koutou rānei. So koina, ko Te Umangia. Any closing whakaro e hoa?
No. Learn the song.
Yeah, koina. Akona te waiata, learn the song, and akona ngā kupu hau i roto, learn the new words in there. I'm sure you're going to find one every second or third kupu.
He maha.
And don't forget te kiwaha o te wiki, auare ake. Snow we both tried to beat Rangi, but auare ake.
Auare ake. I think he's the first guest speaker, to get it on.
Yeah. He had his auare ake going on.
He had his auare ake going on. Ko piro.
And there was lots of different examples of that too. So there's another kiwaha for you, auare ake. And of course, ngā kōrero Rangi Matamua mo tōna iwi mo Tūhoe, Pōtiki. And then, some learnings again in there about the use of pepeha and researching the pepeha. Nō reira, anei māua e mihi tonu nei ki a koutou, tēnā koutou katoa i o koutou Taringa. And tune in again via the net next week for our next installment. Hoi anō, anei māua e mihi atu nei signing off, hei ko nā mai.
Hei ko nā.
Whakarongo ki te tangi a te kori mako, kōrero flowing out the hooker force, kaupapa relevant, kaupapa out of bounds, kaupapa exigent, kaupapa paramount. Nā ko nā whakapiri mai ki te whakahira hira, whakarongo pi kari kari mai, hare hare mai, o Taringa hare hare mai. We gotta gather up close everybody, gather up close everybody. Kani kani move that body, kani kani move that body.
Taringa, brought to you by Te Wānanga o Aotearoa. To listen to more episodes, search for us on your podcast app and subscribe. Taringa, whakarongo mai.